Good. Okay. Okay, I called to order the meeting of the Municipal Authority, June 20, 2022. We just came out of an executive session to discuss personnel and litigation matters. I'll take a roll call. Mark Kay.
Here.
Paul Montefiore.
Here.
Louis Rosenthal.
Here.
Tom Greco.
Here.
Township Manager Steve Neese.
Here.
Municipal Authority Engineer James McCombie.
Here.
And Dave Porter, Municipal Authority Engineer as well.
Here.
Municipal Authority Solicitor Mike Madron.
Here.
And Maria Kane here. I'd like to have a moment of silence right now in honor of Juneteenth and commemorating the last, the day of notification to the last slaves in Texas, who finally got word. I think it was 2 months after the Civil War. I thought it was 2 months. Was it 2 years? Many months after the Civil War, they were notified finally of their freedom. So just a moment of silence. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda for this meeting?
Madam Chair.
Oh, I'm
Do
sorry.
you want to make an amendment to the agenda before you approve the agenda?
Oh, that's probably a good idea. That would be a
Yes.
good idea. Okay, so we did have some information gathered just recently. So in order to just, I don't know if I need to put anything else on the record as far as justification for that motion.
I think this is just a some information that we gathered in the course of discussion of outstanding contracts and you know, potential litigation and some history that some of the newer members of the board didn't have, and they didn't have the chance to consider a payment request. And in that regard, everything just sort of came together a little late to be placed on the agenda. But my recommendation as your legal counsel is that it's ripe for consideration this evening nonetheless.
Thank you. I'll make a motion to amend the agenda to include approval of a payment to JOA Bradley in the amount of $110,000 from the bond for the public sewer project for completion of the work related to the Ashford service area.
Madam Chairman, if I just could, the exact amount, so everybody has that, it's $110,089.85.
$89.85. Thank you.
And it's payment request number 17.
70?
17.
17, payment request 17. Okay, I'll amend my motion to include those details.
And we'll cover that in section 12.
So it should be 12.4. 12.4.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
You should, before you call the vote, when you amend the agenda, you need to specifically call for public comment.
Oh, yes. Any public comment on that amendment? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Moving on.
So now that you've amended it, you now need to go ahead and act to approve it. Just so-
Right.
Okay.
When we get to that point.
No,
No,
you now approve the whole agenda.
Oh,
You've
now
acted to
approve. I got
amend
you.
it. Now you
Yes,
need to
I'm
act to
going
approve.
on to, yes, now I'm back onto the agenda.
Yes.
May I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes from May 16, 2022 meeting?
Motion to approve the minutes, May 16th, 2022.
Any questions or comments? I do have one, but anybody else have any questions or comments about that?
I do. I
Go
think there
ahead,
was a
Louis.
typo in the, in Rich's cover memo dated May 31st. It referred to an April monthly report. And he references May in the body of the
Okay.
memo. It's just the subject. If there's a typo to be found, I'll find it.
Yeah, thanks, Louis.
And what was that again?
That was on page 19.
Page
of the
19.
Agenda.
And it was.
It was
April
Rich's cover
report, but
memo.
It was said May.
Yeah, it said April. It should have said.
Oh, I got you. Gotcha.
And then I had one issue with respect to paragraph 15.3. Instead of stating on behalf of the municipal authority with respect to the authorization to utilize the township arborist at a certain rate, I think it should say instead of on behalf of the municipal authority as directed by the municipal authority.
Okay.
So that there's not this carte blanche authority out there to utilize an arborist at any time.
Gotcha.
Does anybody else have any problem with that change?
Nope.
Okay. All those.
You have a first, or you have a motion, but not a second.
Right.
Okay.
May I have a second on
Second.
approval of the meeting minutes as revised?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, treasurer's report. Do we have a treasurer's report from Rich or?
You should have a treasurer's report in your packet.
Everybody's had a chance to review the treasurer's report?
I just, for clarification, we're going to discuss, I think there's something on the agenda with respect to a recalculation of a large receivable
Later down, yes.
later down, and it's not necessarily considered in here now in these reports, but we have a feel for what the current monthly report might be impacted by.
It's about $190,000, I believe.
Right.
But I think the way I understand it is that it almost works out to be a wash.
There'll be an explanation.
There'll be an
though, right?
explanation.
Okay, good, because
at
it was
that
just
point.
a spreadsheet and I couldn't tie it back to the financial.
Yep,
Okay.
okay.
So shall we approve the treasurer's report then without being revised and? we'll
Yeah,
deal
it'll
with the
change,
other
it'll
issue?
change in June once you take your action. But this
Gotcha.
is it as of May.
This is May.
All right, can I have a motion to approve the treasurer's report?
Motion to approve the treasurer's report for May.
Can I have a second? I'll second. Any questions or comments? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And we have, lucky enough to have two engineers here tonight. Who's giving the initial report?
I guess it would be best that I wrap up loose ends from last month.
All right, thanks,
Um,
Jamie. Go ahead.
The one that I had apprised the board of, there was a concern, one of the residents wrote a concern, Francisco Dioro at 411 Goshen Road, with regard to issues of a sinkhole on the property. We went out and evaluated it. We will prepare a report, and for the board's consideration, will be available at next month's meeting. The other issue, I was apprised that by the board asked me to meet with one of the residents in the community on 212 Bishop Hollow Road, came before the board last month regarding the possibility of connecting into the public sewer system. At that meeting, they were represented by a gentleman from Mid-Atlantic. I have met with the gentleman from Mid-Atlantic. They did provide me with a written report and a plan, which I will provide a copy each of the board members. I want the board to be aware of. Subsequent to that, an additional contractor was directed to our office by that resident at 212 Bishop Hollow. I had met with the contractor and he's to provide me with additional information. Once I have that, likewise, I'll provide a report to our findings to the board for consideration. The other outstanding issue, I was asked by the chair with regard to the status of the warranties on the Old Masters Pump Station. Finally got the answer from the contractor. The outstanding service provider was Gorman Rupp themselves. That they're the ones that own or have the pumps, provided the pumps. Was in contact with the representative. The representative told me, and I'll get it in writing, that they will honor the 5-year warranty once it goes into operation.
From the date of
From the date that it's turned on.
Great.
That's great. Thank you for doing that.
And with that, I believe they're the loose ends that we had talked about. I think Mr. Porter can report on other issues I know that are pressing before the board this evening.
Aside from the other number of issues that are contained elsewhere in the agenda under new business and other action items for the board, just wanted to give the board an update that the Westchester Pike bid package has been put out to bid on June 6th. We have a pre-bid meeting at the Township Building on the 22nd this week at 10 o'clock for any contractors that might attend to bid. So our office will have representatives there as well to answer any questions. Bids are due to pen bid on July 18th and will be read aloud at the next authority meeting on that same date. I think Mr. McCombie covered the other items. Other than that, if the board would like, I can go through the other action items that are contained elsewhere in the agenda, or we can attack them as they come up in the agenda. It's the board's pleasure.
I'm happy to address them as they come up.
Me too.
Okay. Is there a solicitor's report tonight?
I think I gave most of my report was covered by confidential matters we covered in executive session. I did want to ask Madam Chair, I'm not sure if Steve and I were just both so zealous to write down the amendment to the agenda that we forgot and we didn't hear, but I want to make sure that you hit number 6 on the agenda. Did we do public comment on agenda items? And if not, maybe we should call that now.
That's a good point. No, that's my fault. Thank you for that. So before we get to your report, Steve, do we have any public comment on agenda items only? Things that you see on the agenda? And we did amend it to include that one item. Okay, hearing none. Thank you. Steve, go ahead with your report.
Yeah, so just a couple quick things, and I think a little bit later on, you're going to have an update from the subcommittee of what's going on. So I'm not going to spend any time on that, but we'll talk about that a little bit further down in the meeting. But I would make note for the board that I did meet with George Sherritt's Public Works Director, and I also met with Dunwoody this last week. And both have reported back to me that in regards to, I think you all are aware that we've had some problems in the past with some backups there that have been pretty substantial, and they've had some issues with, some backup into their lower level of their place, and they're moving forward with the pump and all of that. And they've been working with McCombie's office to do that. But I just wanted to let you know, we've been out and checking the pipes or the drains in that area. We've had to bring in the flush truck a couple times just to make sure everything was flushed out. We're continuing to do that on a quarterly basis, over and above our normal checking and doing that we're doing. So it is still being checked on a monthly basis, and it's still being flushed on a quarterly basis. So I just wanted to make sure that you were still aware that we were going through that. Talk to KBX. Everything's going well with KBX. No additional reports on that side either. So we have had quite a few one calls that, going out and marking out where our lines are. But other than that, everything's been pretty normal. Bless you.
Well, that's good to hear. Okay. Right. If there's nothing else, Steve, we'll then move on. 11.1, may I have a motion to ratify the reoccurring bills paid on check registered dated June 2, 2022, totaling $758.86. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion to-
Can I have a second?
Second,
Thanks, Mark.
welcome.
Any questions or comments? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Next, consider approving the bills on check register dated June 20, 2022, totaling $427,252.86. I have a motion.
Motion to approve.
Can I have a second?
Second?
Thanks, Louis. Any questions or comments? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Next, consider approving a payment from the bond for Herbert McCombie Engineers for Part 2 permit work, Act 537, Public Sewer Project, as listed below, $3,780.62 for work completed relative to the Camelot service area, and $845 for work completed relative to the Ashford service area. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second,
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Hearing none. All those in favor?
aye.
Next, consider approving change order release number 3 for Ford Brothers Electrical Company Incorporated for the electrical work associated with the Camelot service area totaling $606.32. Can I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Mark, I'll second that. Any questions or comments? I actually have a question on that. Is this separate and apart from the larger change order? So what is this $606.32 out of curiosity?
Yeah, this is something that we did some reconfiguring inside that pump station building, and we kind of relocated the building a little. We were actually pushed it a little bit farther away from the houses and the former location, so they were making up in some fittings and pipe work and such. So
Okay. All right, with that explanation, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Next, consider approving sewer connection permit escrow release to Rose Messeraka at 818 Ellis Avenue in the amount of $750. Project is complete and all invoices are paid in full. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second,
Okay, we've got Louis making the motion and Mark seconded. Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
aye.
Aye. All right, moving on to new business. Consider approving. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I'm adding it here at 12.4.
Yes.
12.4. Okay, can I have a motion to approve payment in the amount of $110,089.50 to JOA Bradley,
85 cents.
85 cents?
Yes.
Thank you. 85 cents to JOA Bradley from the bond for public sewer project work for completion of work to the Ashford service area.
So moved.
I have a second.
Second,
Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
aye.
Okay. Consider approving final and complete release of performance bond number 2310077 as financial security for construction of the 2 private pump stations on the Melmark School campus in the amount of $474,162.70, leaving a zero balance with respect to the Melmark release of bond. I'm actually going to abstain from this because my firm actually does work for Melmark. So I will not make the motion or comment.
I'll make the motion.
If you wouldn't mind taking over, Louis.
Okay, we need a second.
Second.
Very good. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
I did-
Motion carries.
Yeah, so just so on the record, I believe we have the one abstention. And I would just ask that, Maria, if you would make sure you send me your reason for abstention
Absolutely.
tomorrow, please.
Absolutely. Okay, moving on. Discussion and possible action regarding the proposed sewer adjustment for 227 Charles Ellis Drive. Who has background information on this? For some reason, I am drawing a blank.
So this is the issue, if you recall, that we had a very large bill that was been outstanding for a very long time on our outstanding bills, like I believe it's like $190,000. I believe Rich is online, or at least he was online. And so I'm gonna, since he took time from his vacation to come in and tell us what this is all about, I'm gonna let him speak to it. And he knows it best. And so Rich, I'm gonna turn it over to you. If you can just kind of briefly go through what's happened. And if you want us to pull up any documents, just tell us which ones you want us to pull up.
Yeah, sure. So I apologize, I can't be there in person. As Steve said, I was on a fishing trip today. So didn't catch anything. It wasn't that cool, but I probably shouldn't put that on record. So what this is about is back in 2019, when the Rockwell townhomes were constructed, buildings 100 and 200, there was a misthreaded pipe. So between the time period of 2019 and the fourth quarter of 2021, there was, and I'm sorry, I'm pulling these up as I'm going as well. There was approximately 18 million gallons of water billed from Newtown Township Municipal Authority to Rockwell. Obviously, after digging into this, 20 homes in the course of a little over a year and a half, 18 million gallons didn't make much sense. So we quickly identified that there was a problem. After Aqua went out, they identified the problem was a misthreaded pipe in buildings 100 and 200. Unfortunately,
1 second. Are you saying misread or misthreaded?
misthreaded.
Okay.
What does that mean exactly, misthreaded?
So my understanding, and I'm not sure if there is a member of Rockwell's team in the crowd tonight, but
You screwed up.
my understanding is that the pipe was not put in flush, if that makes sense.
Good evening.
Yeah.
Is the mic on there to red or is it green?
Good evening. Hi,
Yeah, that's it. Cool.
my name's Andrew Kabalasak. I'm with Rockwell Custom. I'm with the builder. So what Rich is referring to is outside of the 100 and 200 buildings, there's a meter vault which houses Aqua's meter, and directly outside of that meter vault, there was a main pipe connection that was threaded, and it was misthreaded, not straight. So basically, there was a small amount of water leaking out at that connection point, and over time, that leak seemed to get worse and worse.
18 million gallons?
Yeah, that
of-
seems like more than small.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, over that amount of time, for sure. So in our 20 units, we have sub-meters at each water tank connection that we metered the actual residence usage. At this, outside the meter vault, Aqua is where they were coming up with this massive, reading of water that was leaking out underground.
How is that impacting us financially?
57% of our accounts receivable
So,
potentially
so,
reversed.
yeah, so you have an issue where if this is the situation and they're saying it is, and I have a concern from the township side that we had 18 million gallons of water go somewhere. and it be potentially under the building that they put in. So is there a foundation issue? So we're going to be addressing that with Rockwell separately. But for the purposes of the authority, I think we have a reasonable belief that that water did not go into our sewer based on what we know.
Right.
My understanding, Rich, if you want to explain the process that you went through to get to this, specifically talking about how you took their meter readings, compared them against what and how you got back to that spot, and why we came up with that number, and then the dollar value, and then what that means.
Yeah, sure. So the numbers on the left-hand side that you'll see are the numbers that were provided us directly from Aqua, which is the number of gallons that went up, I guess, until the main meter. The numbers on the right, you will see that they're labeled Rockwell sub-meter usage. This is the meter reads that that Rockwell provided for that same time period. As you'll see, Aqua gave us a meter reading of close to 18 million gallons. When you take Rockwell's sub-meter usage for that same time period, it's 886,000. So we obviously billed Rockwell for the 18 million gallons. And if you net them out, that's an adjustment of about 17 million gallons. 17 million gallons times our rate of $11.32 per 1,000 gallons is an adjustment of approximately $193,000 on their account.
And Rich, how much do they owe us today?
Yes, so there should have been something included in your packets. Give me 1 second. I'm just trying to pull that up.
191, 890, and 61 cents.
Yes, that is correct. $191,890.61 is what they owe us. So by making this adjustment, it would actually give them a credit of $1,368.64.
And my understanding, Rich, is that in 3 weeks, we'll be billing for the second quarter.
Yes, that is correct.
And their average bill, if it was correct, is about what?
Since the problem was fixed, their average bill, their first non-skewed bill was $1,600. Their second non-skewed bill, you would call about $1,500.
So just so that make sure that you and I are on the same page, our recommendation was that if the board were be so inclined to give this, to make an adjustment here, then that would be that we would, if we netted it against what they owed today and in that piece, then that it would be picked up in the next bill. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
that is correct.
Okay, so since there's silence in the room, I'll break it. Rich, I appreciate the analysis, and the explanation is very clear. I'm not comfortable with it. I'm surprised that along the way, Aqua didn't notice in their March 31st of 2021 billing, 8.5 million gallons of water were used at Rockwell, when it's really only 130,000 compared to Rockwell's. I mean, a light didn't go off 15 months ago when this happened, and I don't actually know what the process is. So since the errors, Steve, spanned 2 years, we've already had 2 audited statements that included this as our top receivable. I can't just look at a spreadsheet and say, yes, let's go along with this. I really want to see the source documents. And in fairness, because we've been audited twice, and I'm assuming the largest receivable was tested by our auditors, I'd like them to make an opinion and give it back to us. Because in theory, your largest receivable might cause a relook in prior years, which is a big can of worms. But in fairness, So,
Let
okay,
let
I'm
me
sorry.
just say. a
I think you
couple
got my
things, based on what you've said, and then, I hear what you're saying, and we'll do whatever you wish. But I would say, Rich, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding is Aqua was not even billing during this time. Is that correct?
I do believe that is correct. I don't want to, if Andrew's in the room, I believe that there's also an Aqua misbilling during this whole period as well, where they weren't receiving bills.
That's correct. The line that was leaking was installed by the developer and their contractor. So we were the builder on site. And so those bills, I believe, they weren't coming to Rockwell, they were going to the developer. And so we never even got them to even have the opportunity to say.
So
hey, there's
Aqua
some-
was billing, you just didn't get it.
We would just never.
Oh,
received
yeah,
it.
no, that would have been
That's-
yeah, but my
that-
point was
No, that's. a
somewhere
different-
along the line, an alarm bell has got to ring in Aqua's
What
office.
actually, my understanding was what actually triggered something for Aqua was the fact that there was a complaint of low water pressure in the area, and that's when Aqua actually went out and did something about it. Is that correct, Rich?
That was my understanding, yes.
Is Aqua issued a credit?
Yes,
They have.
they have.
Rich, do you have documentation on that?
I did clear that. I did ask for documentation from Andrew on that. I did not get that directly from Aqua, no. But I do have that documentation from Andrew.
Yeah. So why don't we get that to the board
Yeah.
for
I
their
would rather
consideration?
do our adjustment based on the credit that was granted by Aqua. So, let's.
Yeah, whether it's the same amount of flow or not, it'd be good for you guys to see that.
Yeah, right. Okay, so.
So just again, and just in terms of how the operation works. So we get Aqua billing and then we convert it to our billing base. So, 100 gallons and for sewage purposes, we bill 105 gallons or whatever.
Yeah, so whatever Aqua's reading is, if Aqua's reading comes in that somebody's used 100,000 gallons, we bill 100,000 gallons. We have no, we don't have any reason to question Aqua's meter reading, if that's what you're asking,
So
And we assume, let me go further. We assume that anything that goes into the unit, and I'm saying unit only because in this case, I believe it's 10 or 20 units or something like that. Anything that goes into the units that, is that we're getting from that meter reading goes into our system. And if you'll recall, we've had some conversations about people who have wanted to put in second meters in relationship to watering grass, because that wouldn't go into our system, or watering their lawn or whatever they're doing. So but when we have a meter reading, we assume all the water goes into our system. So that's the reason why we bill
Right.
accordingly.
So again, a little surprised that a bell didn't go off at Aqua's office. But when we got that number passed to us, do we have some type of way to say 8.5 million gallons on March 31st of water going into our sewage system? Is that even, how much do we actually, how much do we actually pass to CDCA in a month? You know what I'm saying? It
Yeah.
almost seems like it's more sewage than we ever pass in total
Well, it's not more than we pass in total, but it's
for the month.
For the month. I don't think it is. Because if you look back.
You know my point.
just-
It's just
Just at that
reasonable.
one area, we had 132,000 gallons, and that was 20 units. So, it is a big number. We are trying to put some things in place where this seems like it's out of whack.
Correct.
But this is the first time we've had anything that's that out of whack.
Got it. Okay, so we learn from it.
Yeah.
But my opinion I would offer to my fellow board members is let's wait until we see a little bit more information before granting this credit.
And
Respect.
if I could make one comment, that the auditor and I did discuss an entry to correct this before the 2021 audit was completed. So the auditor is aware of this. We made an entry to combat the $193,000 receivable. But I will be more than happy to give that to the board prior to the next meeting.
Great, Rich. Thanks.
And so we're, just to make sure, we're going to provide you source documents, being the meter readings that Rockwell has. We'll provide you source documents and the meter readings that we know Aqua gave us. And we'll be getting the bills that Aqua gave or whatever in that way. And then we're going to give you the audit document that Rich has. Is there anything else specifically that you're looking for? So I make sure that we give you everything you want.
One more question. As we convey the Rockwell material to the CDCA entry point, is there a meter on that entry point that comes out of Rockwell?
So there is a meter that comes, and I may refer to Dave over here. I believe the meter doesn't read until, is it after the
It's mixed.
the Ellis pump station, or is it? I believe it's after the Ellis pump station.
So if something were to occur on a monthly basis, our wastewater operator takes care Monday through Friday, holidays and weekends. If they saw a spike in flow, that
Which is one of the reasons why we believe it probably did go in the ground. But it's also one of the reasons why the township has a concern that we put 18
Absolutely.
million gallons of water, even though it was over a 1.5 year period. It was at least a couple million gallons, or at least 1 million gallons a month.
yeah, I was looking to see it was about 28,000 gallons.
Yeah.
And about 9.5 gallons.
And so I have a concern about where that water
Right.
went and what erosion it caused in that way. So we're going to be working with Rockwell on that and we're going to need something to prove that everything's stable in that area.
One last question, and I hate to belabor this, and maybe Dave, you can help with this. But when I look at the erroneous numbers on the Aqua meter, the month there it doesn't really sort of figure any kind of pattern other than a perfect bell-shaped curve. It starts at 735, jumps up to 1,000,001, 1,000,007, 2,000,004, and then peaks at 8,534,000, and it just smooths out. It's just an oddity of the way the numbers work.
Great, I noticed the same thing.
It's sort of like, I'm going to turn the faucet on a little bit more. And I would just, to me, it almost seems like something was leaking and I'm going to make it leak even more, intentionally or
something
unintentionally,
broke
or
or
something broke.
exploded.
And then slowly we started repairing it and fixing it. And so I apologize. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but I'm very suspicious of this. It's just crazy. How many gallons per minute? How does nobody know this? Anyhow,
And to see.
I've asked that question quite a few times.
Yeah, to Steve's point, if that's been flowing over time, and there have been some subsidence underneath the surface that's not controlled, if that shifts in the trench where that water pipe is, maybe the water shifts off that flow. We may never find the answer to that.
Well, maybe we will have more information. when
great.
We will provide the information that's been requested
I appreciate
and
it.
get that to you. We'll work with
Thank you, Rich.
Rockwell to get what we need, and we will do that.
We're taking no action on that. Next on the agenda is consider approving change order number 7 for the Ford Brothers Electrical Company Incorporated for running electric to the Old Masters Pump Station in the amount of $90,662.33. And I have a motion.
No, okay.
Well, I'll make the motion. And then you can I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any comments or questions on this?
Yeah. So when I go through Ford Brothers change order, first of all, it says Camelot Old Masters, and this is specifically for Old Masters.
That's correct. And the reason that Camelot and Old Man, that is the contract that they're asking.
Okay. And on their change order, they show a credit from 8/5/2018, which I'm assuming is how they credit the contract. That middle column called material, those are dollars, correct? Not
Correct.
units. So when I sum up the credit, it comes up to 43,552. I'm surprised.
Exactly what I got.
Very good. You and I must share the same calculator. When I look at the new prices, it's 121,107. And the delta is 77,000, not 90,000.
Right. Look at the column on the right. shaded in yellow. And bottom of the second chart, the line that says rate increase $80 to 100. I
Right,
think
but
they could have explained this a little bit better. Maybe put the $80 in the first.
but that
chart.
7560
Right.
is included in the 121,107.
Yes, yes. So ignore the row, ignore the 252, the 750, 7560, and the 0 in that row after. I'm just simply indicating the rate increases from $80 to $110. So if you apply the $80 to man hours on the first chart from 8/5/28, have a total of 228 man hours multiplied by $80 per hour at $18,300.80 for a total deduct of $61,852.80.
Got it. This is, I live in a world of change orders, and I can tell you this is one of the most poorly prepared pieces of paper I have
You should
seen.
have seen the first.
And this is, and actually, I use
Yeah,
this
this is
frequently.
actually
This is
improved.
really disrespectful to folks like us.
Yeah, I saw the
The
first one.
first one was indecipherable.
Yeah,
We
Okay,
asked for
and this was
clarification, and
this was a clarification
just so
for
that.
your benefit.
And just so that this can be on the record, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the cost by not doing this over 4 years, the cost of the vault goes up by 400%. And by not doing this,
Well, I believe we eliminated a manhole and I think the 4 items.
the manhole's $8,400.
But
The
you're
conduit
right.
price went up by 600%. The 5-inch PVC,
So you're aware, when the oil prices went up, that's PVC conduit. PVC conduit's direct correlation to the price of gasoline.
That basically went from $2 a foot to $14.
right. And so again, this was a contract that was put in place 4 years ago. 2018. The provisions of the contract, which I don't have, says that the municipal authority bears the burden of every single bit of price increase.
I think that the common law puts the delay, the cost of delay on us.
Okay, so let's just highlight the cost of delay,
Yeah.
not just the cost of PVC piping, but the cost of delay has added roughly $100,000 to this. Okay,
I think we're all painfully aware of the cost of delay,
so.
but I'm glad you're bringing it up.
So there's a related change order also. It was a very small one. And again, I'm assuming it was for Old Masters. It's dated October 1st, 2020. Just a little bit old to find its way into this packet. I don't know why the change order is dated a couple of years ago, but we're addressing it today. Why do we need to increase the AIC from 14,000 to 22,000? What's the matter with 14,000? And why are we changing it?
Are we still talking about the same change order?
There is coming, it's two change orders from the same party for the same pump station.
Is it part of the 90,000?
It's part of the agenda.
I'm
So
just
I
asking,
just-
is it part of the 90,662?
$606.
Oh, the previous one,
for the Camelot Lane pump.
which we already approved.
Got it.
so-
Okay. Well, it says Old Masters on here and, you know. Okay.
Any other questions or comments on that one? Right? All those in favor of approving the change order?
Aye.
Okay. Next on the agenda, consider authorizing municipal authority engineer to advertise request for bid for stream bank restoration at 314 Summit Ave contingent upon solicitor review. I'll make the motion. Can I have a second? And then Jamie, do you want to explain this one? I think this was yours, right? I mean, if there's any questions or comments on this.
It was the issue that was, well, one of the residents came up, there was an issue that was discussed last year that the authority would bring this up and put it out to bid. And this year, the issue that, if you recall, last month, the resident was citing that they had an existing wood retaining wall that was put in 25 years ago, well before, I know Mr. Madron or I were on the authority. It's gone, and now there's erosion taking place along the stream bank that's jeopardizing her property. It's also jeopardizing the integrity of the sewer that's installed. So when she had approached the board, probably now a year and a half or so ago, I believe the chair at the time said, let's get the major project that we had going on, let's get this project done. And I believe that Mr. Porter from my office was directed to go out, visit the site, made that recommendation to the board. And at a point in time that we were supposed to take care of this issue, this board last month directed us to get active issue and make some positive strides to get the project where it needs to be. We have the draft plans, the draft bid package. I did give it to Mr. Madron. I believe there's one for the board that, or Mr. Porter has, and I have one that I can hand to Mr. Neese with regard to that, but that's what it's about.
Great. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Next, consider approving municipal authority and authorizing municipal authority engineer to complete the survey needed at the suburban Seahawk Swim Club to connect the Dogwood Lane sewer connections to the municipal authority system.
So moved.
Second,
Thanks, Tom. Any questions or comments on that one? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next, discussion and possible action regarding entering into an agreement with the low-income household water assistance program to assist qualified residents with delinquent sewer accounts. And I think we did have some information in the packet on this.
Yeah, I think last month you asked me to take a look at these documents, and I went through them with Rich and Steve, and I approved them shortly thereafter. So I think you had a little presentation on the program last month, and I had some concerns about the documents. Those have been resolved. So this is ripe for action tonight.
Okay. So we'd be approving the agreement with the low-income household water assistance program. Okay.
I'm sorry, I turned it off. It's basically a programmatic agreement where they provide assistance to low-income housing, low-income families to help with the sewer.
And then the town, if they called, if a resident called in, asked for assistance, we'd be in a position to provide information to them, contact information.
Yeah, and we're not allowed to shut off water, which is not our practice anyhow.
All right, can I have a motion to approve that agreement?
So moved.
motion,
Can I have a second?
second,
All All right, second from Tom on that one. Any questions or comments?
That's
All right.
great.
Yeah, it is great. Thank you for taking a look at that and working with Steve on that too. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, now we'd like to have an update from the Debt Service Subcommittee, which is Tom and
Want me to
Louis.
jump in, Tom? So we met again, I guess it was a week or two ago. The days, we put a status report together. It's in everybody's package. As you recall, last month, we talked about a couple of topics that the rest of the board sort of said continue. Thanks to Rich and Mr. Neese, we've made good progress in focusing on issues. To repeat, we're looking not just at future debt service payments and the kind of requirements we're going to need to have to make those payments a couple of 3 years out down the road and in the future, but also what the necessary amount of money is going to be to maintain the system. SR3 is newer, and the likelihood of failure, despite water leaks and maybe billing errors, is not as high as in SR2, which is extremely older than SR3. And we've already had a couple of issues and potential failures, and we want to make sure that the authority is well positioned to have enough of a reserve for planned capital maintenance and unplanned maintenance. So that's what we're doing. Along with that, we're going to put together no decisions and no recommendations yet, but whether or not we want to blend rates and combine the unified system so that we can maintain the system in total and not just in the sort of SR2, SR3 division that we have today. What kind of impact that will have on ratepayers within the authority. And then finally, maybe the most important part is a communication plan for the ratepayers and the other residents of the township who may have an interest in it as well. So, Tom?
No, I agree. I think you covered it all. There's a lot of information being shared among the team. And from a newcomer, let me tell you, that was sort of overwhelming. Wastewater is not something you just simple kind of product. Like was just said, the SR2 is 60 to 70 years old. So obviously something is going to happen more quickly than something in SR3, which is only maybe 40 years old. So I think we believe that consolidation of the fee structure makes some sense, and so we're going to be pursuing that some more. And I think Louis covered it all.
Good. We really appreciate the work that you guys are doing on that. It's so important.
So at this point, I just want you to be aware that I'm going to be reaching over here out to Mike and having a conversation with him about, legally, can we do what we've talked about? Does it make sense? Is there any issues that, we need to work through? There may be some conversations we need to have with our engineering staff of what that would mean, particularly since we have some rates right now that are very specific based off of usage and things like that. And so what that would be. But it seems to be, with what we've talked about of knowing what the needs are in both SR2 and SR3, there's a lot of sense in this. We know other municipalities that have already done it. There's a model to follow in doing this. So that's the basis that we're looking at. And so just so you know, as a board, we're going to be reaching out within the next week or so here just to have conversations with our solicitor and engineer about what that looks like, because we want to be ready to go back to you with a pretty solid plan in July with a with the communication starting because we'd realized that this impacts, potentially every one of our ratepayers. And then we want to make sure we communicate it well and we communicate it often during that process.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Okay, so if you're planning on making everybody the same rate, how is it when they both use different systems, like SR2 uses RHM, SR3 doesn't?
Yeah, so it's very similar to what, Marple does this. They have SR2, they have a system that goes to RHM and they have a system that goes to CDCA, just like we do. They use a combined rate. Like I said, we need to have conversation with our solicitor. We need to have conversation with the engineer to determine what it's going to take to move to something like that and if it's doable with our system. But that's where we're coming back and saying, this is the way to best finance not only our debt over the next 25 plus years, but also the way to look at the fact that we have a very large system in SR2 that what we've spent in SR3 may be just the drop in the bucket, what we need to spend in SR2 to continue to maintain SR2. And if the township were to look at the 537 plan and bring on certain sections of the township, we may need to do a trade of where some of it's going. And so we just need to really work through all of that. And so this is a way of saying we provide a service to people in the township. It really doesn't matter whether it goes to RHM or whether it goes to CDCA. At the end of the day, everybody's having their system, everybody's having public sewer. And what does it look like? And so we just have to work through that.
All right, thanks, Stephen.
Very good. Okay. All right, moving on. There was a resolution in your packet to approve collection procedures, appointment of solicitor, who is, make sure I get the name right, Michael Porchnoff. Michelle, sorry. Michelle Porchnoff, as the solicitor for the limited purpose of collections, interest assessment, credit card and debit card charges and fees and costs to be added in the amount collected as part of the unpaid municipal claims for delinquent accounts. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments?
Couple of clarifying questions. First, the comment. I know Rich ran a lot of this down and appreciate his efforts in getting to this. The second is the resolution embodies more or less a contract with this limited purpose solicitor. That's primarily a rate card. There is no provision in there, but what if we get disappointed and we want to just drop them?
So this is a 2-year agreement with them. The resolution doesn't have the entire, there's an engagement letter as well. There's a 2-year agreement with them for the collections. I'm trying to recall their termination provisions. I think there's termination provisions in there with, I believe it's 90 days notice. That is where we ended up with that. And what happens is you would pay them for the work that they've done on a project. Remember, most of this is being paid by the delinquent ratepayer.
Right.
There's a small amount that's being paid by authority. Basically, they cover, I think, the first letter, we cover the second letter, and then the rest is billed onto that ratepayer. So if you terminate, there's going to be some costs that they won't be recovering, but we'll still have the opportunity to recover. So it should net out evenly.
Okay. And you're okay with this reference to limited solicitor or whatever the term is?
Yeah, I mean, I'm
And
not.
not ego, just ambiguity in terms of who's who for the authority.
Yeah, I think when you look at the scope of the engagement letter that goes along with it, it's pretty clear.
Okay.
And just to be clear too, if I recall, we have control over who we refer out.
That's correct.
And that was my major concern with this.
Yeah, that's correct. And I'll say if Steve decides it's best to call on them to decide issues related to Act 537, then I haven't done my job well enough. So go ahead and do it.
Steve, just a clarifying question again, what we are approving in the resolution has a number of charges that the ratepayer who's delinquent would pay. Do we have to we'll be putting these in our revised rate card or?
Yeah, we'll have, we'll do, I mean, this is going to serve as our revised fee schedule
Okay.
for our purposes. We'll add it to our fee schedule so that it's very clear that that's what this is for. So these are actually being paid to, like, we don't serve as a pass through on this. They're actually being paid directly to the solicitor who's doing this work. And then they give us the money they collect. The only place where that's not true is that second letter where we get billed, we pay for it, and then when they collect, we get the money back. But other than that, they do the collection. It takes it out of the hands of the municipal authority and places it in the hands of them to do the collection on these particular accounts that we turn over.
Thank you.
And the way we'll do that when we get ready to turn them over, we'll go through with you and say, here's the X number of accounts we're ready to turn over and make sure you approve it.
Great. Okay. All right. Did we vote to approve that?
No, we didn't.
Okay. Any
There's-
questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Now, moving on to public comment. Do we have any members of the public that want to make any public comment? If so, come up to the podium, state your name and your address, and then let us know what your comment is.
Let me just preface, this is my first municipal board meeting, so if I breach protocol, you'll let me know. So the comment I have, it has to do with the sewer authority.
Just give us your name and your.
Oh,
address.
Sheridan Bradley. I'm sorry, see, I
That's
breached
all right.
protocol.
Yep,
And address is 4256 Fairview Avenue.
4256 Fairview.
Correct.
Thank you.
So the issue or the public comment, and you can steer me otherwise if this is not the venue, but there were a couple punch list items that were left on the list from J.A.O. Bradley that had to do, and Dave, I work with you, there was a tree in the back that was damaged by Bradley. And then there's the status of the road. Chris Mulvey from Macomb was out about 2 weeks ago to survey. So I wanted to find out what the status of that review was. But really what brought the road back to light, the issue is recently I was made aware that Park Avenue was paved. And I assume everybody on the board here is familiar with the term paper road. Or is my assumption incorrect? So Park Avenue is a road that is 2 blocks away in Florida Park. So that was utilized by J.A.O. Bradley. So was Pomona Ave. So my address is 4256 Fairview, but it's on the corner of Fairview and Pomona. So again, it's twofold. There was a recent survey by Chris Mulvey, but as far as a public comment, I would like to know, since Park Avenue is a paper road, what was the rationale used where their entire road was paved? So Park Avenue is a paper road and Pomona is a paper road.
So you're saying Pomona was not paved?
No.
And you believe it should have been?
Well, it was utilized. I have pictures and video
Yeah.
of the trucks
Okay,
utilizing.
so are you saying damage was done to it because it was utilized?
There would appear that there's some damage. Yes,
Just go ahead and turn it on.
And put it
no,
out.
I see. You don't have to
You
press
don't
it
have-
in.
you don't have
Okay,
to
I got
press
it. So,
In fact, if you just put it right here.
yep.
If you just do that, it'll pick
Okay.
it up and you don't
All
even
right,
have to-
there you go.
There you go.
So yes, my understanding, there was a video of a before and after. That was protocol for the
Okay.
process.
And do you utilize that road? What is it, Pomona? you said?
Pomona Ave, yes.
Do you utilize that to go to and from your home? Is that what you're,
Yes, we're on the corner of Pomona Ave and Fairview.
okay,
So Pomona's, wait, I don't want to over lawyer this, but typically when we think of a paper street, we're thinking of a street that has not been accepted for dedication by a
Correct.
municipality.
Yes,
So it's privately owned street, I guess.
technically.
Or it's laid out on a plan, but it's never been accepted for dedication.
21 years, after 21
Has
years
it been
of,
21 years?
yes,
It has, okay. And has anybody quieted title to get that into their deed, do you know, or is it still?
I would have, no, the
No,
answer is no. I would
okay.
have liked to come here and see if you'll adopt the road. But nonetheless, I mean,
This is not the board that would adopt it, right? This is the sewer authority. That would be a township. issue.
That's-
I get that. That's a whole nother issue. I can go on as far as the taxes that we pay are commensurate with others and so forth that do have their road paved. The issue being is, again, the survey was done by Chris Mulvey, going through the punch list items, so I don't know what the status of that is after he reviewed it.
Is he with your office?
Yes.
Okay,
Okay,
just want to clarify.
but depending upon the status, I'm making a public comment. Again, I don't go to the far end of the neighborhood all that often, but when I did, I was surprised that Park Avenue, again, that is a paper road as well, was not adopted by the township. So as a resident, yeah, I would like to know that since, again, J.A.O. Bradley utilized Pomona Ave. They had to because the sewer line is down by Crum Creek.
Did we pave Park Avenue?
Yes.
We did.
I can answer the question. Park
Yeah,
Avenue is
go
a private street. We got permission and easements from all the adjacent property owners to put the sewer line right down the middle of the street. So the sewer line was down there and the access to the construction of the pump station, Old Masters, went through Park Avenue. So after they had numerous trucks and equipment to go down to build the pump station at the Old Masters, plus put the sewer lines and the laterals in on Park Avenue, the road was completely destroyed and it was repaved because we had permission to do it. It's not a paper street, it's a private street. And as the solicitor said, there's a difference, there's a distinction between a paper street and a private street. Paper street's one that hasn't been opened. Private street is open, but it's not owned, it's not dedicated as an official public street to the municipality, but it's owned by the adjacent property owners. And in that specific case, they granted the authority easements to construct the sewer line down their street and also gave permission to the contractor. And especially, there was a special agreement with the Fagas, we were at the end of that street to go across their property to access the Old Masters golf course and to actually facilitate the construction of the sewer line and the pump station, the Old Masters pump station. So the other issue as well is Chris Mulvey from our office has been going through the Camelot service area to determine what outstanding areas haven't been restored and to come up with a report to present to the board. The report hasn't been completed because he hasn't finished if you see the sewer project's extensive. It basically
Absolutely.
basically runs from almost Radyville Road all the way up to the township line and from 252 to Edgemont. So it's a significant area, but they're in the process of going through all that to identify the remaining punch list items that still have not been addressed.
Would that be one of them, paving this Pomona?
I don't know if paving it is, but there's probably restoration and other things that may be done, but I'd have to look at that and see what the recommendations are. So it's not, I can't say it's not possible, but if the road was never paved or portions were never paved, we're not going to start paving roads that were never paved to begin with. If there were paving that was done that was disturbed or destroyed by the contractor, yeah, the restoration needs to bring it up back to at least as good, if not better than it was before. And if that represents that it needs to be paved, then that would be the solution. But we're in the process of identifying the areas that all the restoration hasn't been complete, writing a report, submitting the report to the authority so that you have it in hand and understand the scope, the overall scope of the restorations that still have not been completed.
Are you anticipating having that by the next meeting?
Apparently,
Yes,
Mr. Porter's saying yes.
Yes.
Probably in conjunction with that payment request, right? I mean, they're gonna
Yes.
submit a
Yes.
payment request and you guys are gonna have to evaluate what was.
Right,
completed.
that's correct. So we're working with J.O. Bradley to get a final pay application request into the authority. And in connection with that report, to identify what the punch list items are, we can rectify what they're asking for and what's outstanding to be completed on the project. And Mr. Bradley is correct that tree at the rear of the property is one of the items that is on the punch list. I think I shared a snippet of the punch list with you at some point, and that is still on there.
So
Yep.
the tree's on there. We
Yep.
can't say for sure anything with the road, perhaps some restoration. And we'll likely have an update at our next meeting, depending upon whether or not JOA Bradley, completes, the documents that they need to complete a submission for, completion.
Yeah, they're supposed to be submitting a final payment requisition request, and we're supposed to look at the final restoration that needs to be done to see what could or couldn't be released and to see what's outstanding to get it resolved, to get everybody 100% whole.
Is there anything else other than those two items?
No, that's it. I don't want to prolong. So I guess my next step is I'll come to the next meeting.
That would be, I think, preferable.
That's
for you.
when that was more likely to be on the agenda. Tonight was Ashford,
Yeah,
Tim
that's
was.
fine. Again, I'm not familiar with the process as a resident. Or address, so we'll leave it at that.
Thank you.
And I'll.
Thank you very much.
And
Appreciate it.
Jamie, Dave, you'll report it to us, even if Bradley is late and doesn't get the numbers, you'll report to us
Certainly, yeah.
that
When we get our report, the authority will have our report.
even if you don't get the
Yes,
report,
I
you'll
understand
report it to us.
I will report it to you.
Right.
And in fact, I do know at one point I did pull the pre-construction videos to look at that area. Because I know that Steve and I had a conversation about possibly rolling that into maybe the road program. And at the time, when we evaluated, we looked at not only the videos, but we also looked at some additional information and compared the pre-construction versus the current condition. And there certainly was some pre-existing damage to that road in that location. So there was some dispute as to what extent J.O. Bradley contributed to that. So.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, hi.
There we go. My name is Katie Grieco. I'm not a resident. I'm a realtor with a client who would like to sell a lot on Phillips Lane. So I'm here to request information as to the status of the sewer pump and when it will be operational. I gather there was an ongoing lawsuit.
I just want to
And-
interrupt for a second. Mike, obviously, I want to be respectful of any public
Discretion,
comment.
I think. It's your discretion. I mean, the Sunshine Act is taxpayers, but Ms. Greco is doing business in the town, and I think it's taxpayers and business owners.
Point of order. I'm a resident and and Florida Park as well.
All right, so I'm sorry, your name again, just.
My name is Katie Grieco, and if you want to join me,
Since you're not a resident, can you spell your last name for me? Just make sure I have it right for the record.
yes,
Yeah.
GRIECO.
Okay.
And I'm representing Matt and Adrian Howell, HOWLE,
And Katie with a K or a C? Just
with the
making sure.
K.
Okay, okay. Just want to make sure I have it right.
KATIE.
And what's your address on Phillips to House?
It's a lot, so it's not
Okay.
assigned
So it
one.
doesn't have a.
However, when
okay.
it was put up for sale, when they purchased it, it was labeled as 8-9.
Is that a vacant lot?
It is a vacant lot. They purchased it in 2020 with the desire to build a home, with the understanding the sewer pump was in progress. And subsequently aborted that after over 2 years because there was litigation that slowed that up, and with the growing family bought a home. And
Where is this
now
lot again? I'm
It's
trying to-
on Phillips.
Phillips.
If Phillips is off of Boone
PHILLIPS.
Yeah.
Road,
Yep,
So I just was trying to get an update.
the flow would go to the old Masters pump station.
gotcha.
The reason why the issue.
Okay. You want to join in the,
Sure.
since we're,
Thank you, Madam Chair and Board. My name is Lawrence Miller. I live at 4416 Fairview Avenue, so just a few doors down from Mr. Bradley. I was also just hoping to know when we might be able to tap into the sewer. and what our fees might be and any other details that are forthcoming.
As far as fees are concerned, you should have received information and.
They've not received
they've not
those yet
received it
because
yet.
we're still,
That's
the
okay,
pump
letter
station has to be
before
up and operational before we send out that letter. We can give you a general, and Dave, you can correct me if I say any numbers wrong. The tap fee is scheduled to be $6,950. The connection fee is actually we've combined the connection fee and the escrow, but we're treating it as that, and then there's not this ongoing expense of $750. Is that correct?
That's correct. So the application fee was typically $250. There's also an engineering and legal escrow that's required. Part of that covers the review and inspection of your lateral permit and installation of the lateral. And that's $750. So rather than having each resident put out $1,000, the authority agreed that we're going to be doing so many of these at one time. We'll have the staff available to go sort of lot to lot and basically cut that in half. It's a one-time non-refundable $500 fee, whereas the escrow would be any portion unused would be refunded. But we felt that $500 was a reasonable cost that we could cover our expenses and protect the authority's interest and cover their expenses as well administratively by charging that $500 fee.
And that's included in the $750 figure?
No,
No,
so there's not going to be the $250 and $750 on this sewer project. It's just going to be a flat $500 fee instead of doing the other.
Okay, so there's the tap fee of 7,000 or 6,900.
69.50.
6,900
Yep.
plus the 500.
Plus the
Plus
500.
plus
but
the
no-
500.
No separate, so, okay.
And then whatever it costs for your contractor to do the work, and you obviously you pay them directly.
And we are working on, the authority is working on a letter that is going to detail all this information.
Mhm.
I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, either Steve or our engineer, because we're running into delays in getting the pump station operational, we're delaying sending you the letter because we don't know when exactly it's
Because
going to
when-
start
Yeah,
operating.
when the letter goes out, it actually starts a clock,
Right.
and we don't want to start the clock until we're ready to accept flow.
So once we have this pump station operational, then we're going to notify you of your time frame. That being said, I mean, I do think it's important that the residents understand that when they do get that letter, that it is going to be, a 60-day time period, I think it is, for you to
Correct.
get your tapping fee in. And then at that point, you start collecting information on your contractor and connecting to the sewer. So the letter will have a lot of good information in there for you. But again, we've run into delays, and unfortunately, it's been the only real significant issue with respect to the 537 plan.
So I think that the first part of your question was when, basically.
Pretty much.
And I'll take a swing at it.
Go
I'm the
for it.
newest guy in the room, so somebody will probably have to correct me a couple times, but you're right, there was some litigation around the Act 537 plan that caused a good bit of delay getting through that litigation. And now there's been some litigation about acquiring a final easement to connect the pump station to electricity. We've acquired a temporary easement that we can use in the interim to connect the pump station to electricity. So we're down to a final permit that we're waiting on through the County Conservation District. And we anticipate that permit coming relatively
Yeah,
soon, I think,
So
right?
we did confirm with the Conservation District that they would entertain an expedited review on that. So it's, I think, a 15-day turnaround time. I did speak with Maria about that briefly today, that what we'd like to do with the County Conservation District is schedule a meeting with them to go over the resubmission of that permit to address their comments, because there's a little bit of nuance to the stormwater implications on that permit. So we want to get in front of them and explain that and have their buy-in and their participation prior to them conducting the technical review.
So if you were here all evening, I don't have the action number in front of me, but I'll find it real quick. It was 13.3 was approval of a change order to Ford Brothers. They're the ones who are going to run that electrical. So the authority's doing everything it can. The board's doing everything it can to get everything in place so that when that permit comes in, they can just, say go and get this thing connected.
So correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like the lawsuit is wrapped up. And
That
now-
lawsuit's wrapped up and that 537 plan is all approved.
That's
Um,
wonderful. But there's an
know-
appeal process often.
Well, I think there's two
There
lawsuits.
are two lawsuits.
Yeah.
The 537 plan piece, that's resolved.
The much bigger lawsuit was resolved.
Yeah,
Okay.
the lawsuit about the acquisition of that final easement is really not going to impact when the project is put into operation because we have the temporary. So while that one is being appealed, it's not going to affect the timing on getting things operational.
Okay, so that's still in a legal state with the appeal process. You're counting down or?
Well,
But
the
we're gonna
appeal has
utilize
been
the
filed.
temporary easement to get around
But
the
the-
litigation. So the
right.
litigation's not gonna hold us up any longer because we got a temporary easement.
Yeah.
But in order for the temporary easement to be,
You
so
gotta
that
go
we
through
can
the
utilize
conservation
it,
district.
we gotta get this permit
Got it.
from the conservation
So
district.
this is actually great news. Now,
Yeah.
my only other question would be, because there's no house there, nothing done, they didn't, they went through survey and topo studies, but kind of moved on. The 60-day tap-in fee, does that apply to an empty lot where the fees have to be put up front?
I believe that if you don't have a structure there, I'm not sure that it would.
No, because it's tied back to the structure.
You have to do it when you get a
You-
certificate of occupancy.
I just wanted to clarify. 'cause
I mean, I
don't-
think in fairness to whoever your buyer is, you need to let them know that they're going to be required to hook to public sewer.
Absolutely.
And, that there is a cost and, but no, there's not a requirement before the property is
Okay.
sold.
And those are details I could clarify with you.
You can
'Cause I wanna
clarify
be
with the township or with the.
Completely
authority.
accurate in any kind of listing that I would put up as an
Yes.
agent. Okay.
Yeah.
Rather than just take these notes here. Perfect. Thank you very much. And are you finished? I want to make sure you.
No, I don't think I have any other questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
That answered all of your questions too. Good. Okay. Anybody else?
Hi, I'm Pam Larson. I live at 4019 Fox Hill Lane. You all received an email earlier today from Suzanne Willanen, or else from me directly, about what is continuing to go on with the restoration of our property. And Mike came out this afternoon to see the property. Dave was out 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I understand, Maria, that you came out today as well.
I just drove by, yeah.
Okay.
Just to get a sense of like the front anyway. I didn't want to bother you.
Okay. So it's hard to get a sense of it from the street because the grass looks even, but it is not even. Where it was all torn up, and you had received the letter and the pictures that I had supplied last July. The property continued to look like that until April, when Earth Care came out. And didn't really do a great job restoring the property. So I just want to plan to move forward. And also, I noted that last month when I was looking at some of the minutes, the reimbursement, because we had to pay Earth Care up front. I don't know if that was approved or not. It was hard to tell from the minutes.
So the reimbursement was approved subject to my putting a release together for you. And honestly, I didn't feel like I had sufficient information to get the release together. Nobody's fault but my newness, really. So with your letters, I think I do, and particularly with your conversation today, I appreciate that. To put that release together, but I guess we have sort of a bigger issue now, and that's what's going to happen going forward, because it's difficult to craft a release piecemeal. You know, it's better to craft a release when all the action that's going to be taken either has been taken or is planned to be taken, so that you can say, okay, upon the complete of X and Y and Z, there's a full and complete release. So, you know, I think it's important that you're here this evening to bring these issues to light and get some discussion going on.
Well, so basically, based on some of the conversations that we had last year, the release of the funds were going to be in a piecemeal form. Earth Care couldn't come out in the fall and do everything that they were hired to do. They didn't have opening in their calendar to get a lawn put in, and so we waited. I think that would be kind of unfair to us to have fronted that money and then have to wait until everything is completed, because nothing gets completed on our property in a timely fashion.
Yeah, here's, I mean, I do have a thought on that gets you your reimbursement sooner, and that's that we would figure out what the plan is going forward, and I haven't discussed this with the board yet, by the way, so.
Okay.
And if I get the hairy eyeball from somebody, I might have to shut up too, because this is really a little bit of we're crossing maybe what could have been attorney-client privilege, but what I would suggest we do is we craft a release that says this work was done, this work was done, this is the value, this is what's going to occur, and the release becomes effective on the completion of that. So that way we get you your money for what you've put out already, and then the release becomes effective. It'd be a lot clearer when I write it up than when I try to articulate it, but
No,
that's,
I think the concept sounds.
that's the idea,
sounds good.
perspective, you know.
And that
your
way
perspective.
we can talk with you tonight about, I think it was your, the last, point in the, I don't know if this is a different one that I read.
Well,
It was one of
I
your-
forwarded you the letter that was written last July, and then
Okay.
I took the letter, then I wrote a new letter that was dated June 20th, and I had, the bolded part of that letter was basically the wrap up of the letter from
Gotcha.
last July. What we had foolishly expected to be done by July 31st, 2021. And everything in italics is basically what has happened since then. So we did, as this says, we did have trees taken down. We still have trees that are struggling on the property. So I don't know if that would warrant another visit from an arborist to come out. We also, when Dave was out, Chris Mulvey came with him, as well as, I believe it was Ben from Earth Care, but Ben from Earth Care kind of just kept putting off that he was just, a manager.
And Earth Care was selected by you?
Earth Care was highly encouraged by the board and by Dave to use Earth Care because the township had used them for other projects. They had done a good job. I believe they did something over across the street somewhere near.
Are you not happy with them?
No, they were supposed to do grading. There's plenty of so you saw in the pictures from the previous letter where the huge equipment came down to take down the hugely mature trees. Everywhere they turned, they just pushed up, a foot or two of dirt. And those ruts are still there. It does not look that bad from the street because the grass is cut evenly, but you can't walk in the yard. You can't really, when you're mowing the lawn, you're just going up and down.
Have they
through
taken
the-
responsibility for that?
Sort of, well, I don't know if you've had further conversations.
Are we, based on the most recent invoice from them, are we done with the work that they've completed and invoiced? for?
Not to their satisfaction.
Okay, so they've invoiced for work that they've completed and you're not happy with the invoiced work?
Correct, because they didn't do the work that was spec'd to them. They didn't bring the soil that was spec'd to them. They didn't do the grading. We now have terrible runoff issues. 3 of the trees that they planted,
Well, I just want to separate out the work that they've done and they've invoiced for, and I know.
This
there are
is all the
other
work that they've
issues.
done.
Okay,
They planted multiple trees 3 of the trees that died when my husband pulled them out were still wrapped in their metal cages, still tightly bound in their burlap. They had replaced one of the trees because when they planted the tree, it was already broken. And when they dropped off the new tree and asked my husband to plant it, they gave him instructions to cut off the burlap, to cut off the metal cage, which he did. But when they planted their own trees, they did not do that. So no, we're not
And I
happy.
don't, okay, so you're not happy with them. So my concern is that we've got an invoice from them that we've committed to effectively paying for that. But yet you have potentially a claim against them and not us. So I've got that issue. We definitely, we've read, I think all of us on the board have read through everything that you've sent, and we really appreciate all the information. And you know, what you've been through. I mean, my recommendation was going to be that we authorize our engineer to do a survey of your property to determine the elevation. So, you know, some of these issues that you're saying that Earth Care has created we'd be able to determine that. We'd also be able to determine how to change the topography so that you got your water flow in, so that you'd have your water flow, you know, in a way that's not going to pool up and, you know,
Right.
destroy new plantings, et cetera. I was also going to suggest that we have the arborist go over and look at that tree and any other potential trees, but, you know, with the understanding that we can't be looking at trees, you know, year in, year out. I mean, let's look at, there's at least one tree over there that may need some attention, and any other trees that may potentially have one. But that was going to be my recommendation. However, I see this issue of Earth Care and their current invoice, which we've already committed to the work and paying for it. That unfortunately is your claim and not ours. So I don't know if our solicitor has any comment on that issue.
Well, I'm just trying to parse the logic out here. So the Lairdsons are in privity of contract with Earth Care.
Right.
And they paid Earth Care and they're seeking reimbursement from us for that payment.
Correct. And that was
right?
what was agreed upon with the
No,
board
we
last
we
time.
agreed to do that
Yeah.
work.
So obviously, we want to see the work done right, but on the other hand, our commitment is to reimburse them, and with that piece of it, we would be done.
Right.
Because it's their contract to pursue, not ours. Now, I know that Dave's provide them some help with that, which is probably a courtesy that you want to extend. But as far as reimbursing them for it, I think, you know, we need to get the release that we're seeking, and then it would be their claim with Earth Care. Now, I don't know how Earth Care coming out and doing what it was supposed to do properly affects the need for the survey and the grading, right? Because I think Earth Care was supposed to lay down some more topsoil out front, right?
They were in the back and they were supposed to do grading and they didn't. They mainly used the soil on the side of the house.
Did they not?
They did not
But
bring
they-
enough soil.
But they believe they've completed the work as,
You've had more follow-ups with them.
Yeah, so there's a couple of different things that are going on. One, there is an area in the rear yard that was spread out, a pile of soil was spread out, which changed the topography of the rear yard. The front and the side yard of the house, 100% was caused initially by the authority's tree contractor that came out at a different time of year than they said they were going to. Instead of coming out in the winter when the ground was frozen, they accessed it in
It was
February,
May
March.
5th. It was
Okay.
very.
And it was
rainiest day.
raining that day on top of it to take a 40-something inch oak tree down. So there was some extensive rutting through the front and the side yard. Earth Care did address those areas with topsoil and seed. I don't think that they did it to the attention of detail that it warranted. In other words, there's tire ruts on either side. In the middle, there's untouched soil and the topsoil settled. So every time you drive over it perpendicularly with a lawnmower, you're going up and down. So they did commit to coming back out with another like 10 yards of topsoil to spread that, even it out, reseed it, and take care of a couple of areas that I think were right adjacent to the house as you were going around the bend.
Mhm.
I think that was one of the tripping hazards that you
Yeah.
were concerned with when we had the site meeting. And then another area as you're going around the bend to drain that out away from the landscaped area.
Right.
So they did commit to doing that and coming back and doing that. As far as the grading, I think the understanding that grading would need to be done based on something that is designed. I wouldn't recommend that Earth Care go out and say, eyeball it and we're gonna grade it. The grading that I would anticipate Earth Care, a company like them, to do would be to smooth out the transition between the existing ground and where they filled topsoil, and to maintain that properly. When you place the topsoil, it's going to settle a little bit, so you may have some differential settlement that needs to be addressed later on. But that's sort of the type of grading that they would be proficient in, not necessarily doing cut fill excavation and grading
Right.
that way. So in order for them, they can do it, but they would need grade stakes, and that's what Madam Chairman was referring to, is to have our office go out, take topography, which our surveyors would go out and take topography, prepare a plan, and then we would put proposed grades on that plan to ensure that the runoff went in the direction that the Lairdsons wanted it to go. I think part of what has complicated that issue is J.O. and Bradley, when we finally got them to go out and restore the sewer easement and finally got enough topsoil and finally got the grass to grow, their individual sewer contractor to construct their lateral came in and completely wiped out the rear yard. And with the residual soil that was remaining, that was supposed to be used to fill the couple of septic tank and pump tank that they had on site, instead of asking their client what they wanted to do with the soil, they took it upon themselves to just spread it over the backyard. So a lot of it was,
And Joe and Bradley left way much,
they
too much
left a lot of
dirt, and they
soil there.
knew, and they
Yes.
added to it during the project. when
Yeah,
we
and
came back.
if they added to it during the project, that's a completely other issue, because I recall meeting with you and Jack
It is in that
and J.O.
letter.
and Bradley, with Steve Botella, I think was the contractor he had meet us
Right.
out there
Right.
to talk about that. And he thought that what was sitting there at the time was sufficient to fill the couple of tanks that you needed filled. So there's a bunch of different things that are kind of moving parts here that are affecting the overall completion of the project. And I think the authority should be aware of.
This is what I'm thinking is that, if we could have you, Dave, working with the Lairdsons
Mhm.
to get Earth Care out of the picture at this point and get them to do what can be reasonably requested of them under the existing, estimate that they provided, so that we can enter into this release agreement with the Lairdsons to pay that amount. But any encouragement and assistance you could provide to get them,
Sure.
it sounds like, to fill those ruts and do some general grading over there.
Now, here's the other,
The summer, you can't
kind
plant
of,
grass.
yeah, here's the other nuance that comes into it. I know the Lairdsons wanted to be able to use their yard to some extent throughout the summer. And with the planting season basically ending June 15th, you could plant grass in the summer, you could plant sod, but you have to water the heck out of it. And that's another added cost that they don't want to incur. So when we met a week and a half or 2 weeks ago, we asked that question: would you want to wait till the fall to
And Earth Care said they didn't recommend coming in now. and
right?
planting
Yeah,
grass
they
either.
said they'd do it whenever you wanted to, but they recommended doing it in the fall.
So they know they need to go back out
Yes,
there,
they did.
Yes.
do some work.
Yes.
It doesn't make sense to have Earth Care do that work in the fall, right? Obviously, we remain committed to paying what we said we would for that work. Does it make sense then to, I know that there's other aspects of the property that need to be addressed. Are we then if we wait to do that in the fall, are we then going to extend the Lairdsons' pain, if you will, by then, having the second part of this project to repair anything else that, we are reasonably responsible for through a contractor other than Earth Care, because the Lairdsons clearly are not thrilled about continuing to contract with them. I mean, I'm just concerned about time frame. Now we're gonna be into the winter, and now, I fear that, we're gonna go
Well, the fall is the best time to plant the grass. So
right, but what I'm saying is we need to get Earth Care out of the picture, right? Because we have this issue where we've got to get Earth Care paid. Right? And now I don't want to,
Earth Care has been paid. It's just.
We have to
it's
get these guys
reimbursing the
paid.
Lairdsons for that payment.
oh, okay, so we need to reimburse you for that.
Right.
Okay, but then we need to get, and Earth Care still willing to go out there even though they've been paid?
They are, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right,
And-
do they
and
think they're getting more work? Or did they
that's-
just,
That's questionable. They have committed to, they basically said that any additional work would be something that they would have to square away under a separate contract. It would be additional work to do any regrading of that rear yard.
So wait a second, before we go any further, I think we need to have some clarity here for just a minute. Because, I'm sitting here listening, I guess I thought that Earth Care was coming out to fix what they didn't fix the first time. And you're saying that's not the case. Earth Care believes they completed the contract.
Yes,
So Earth
except
Care,
for the,
so if Earth
the
Care
dress-up
believes they
areas.
completed the contract, I have a question.
Mhm.
Why, and I'm putting you on the spot, for a second here, Ms. Lairdson, and I apologize for doing
that's
that.
okay.
Obviously, you paid them. Did you believe it was done to your satisfaction when you paid them? I'm a little confused.
So what happened the day of, I was not there. I was working, my husband was home, and he had multiple conversations with Dave that day. And I guess it was John Irvine, is that correct? And
Yes.
then Ben, because they came and they left a very small pile of dirt. I guess it was back in last August. Dave and two of the higher ups or owners from Earth Care and my husband and I talked about what the project was. Dave provided a scope. When Ben showed up with his crew, he said, this was, this little pile of dirt is all I was told to bring. Dave assured my husband that he would vouch for them, that they always do a good job. And Earth Care was going to leave if we didn't pay them.
wait, they
with-
threatened to leave what, the property and
Just
never come
leave the,
back?
just
And
leave the
leave the-
property and not do the work that had been scoped out and had been agreed upon. With Dave's assurance that they do a good
But you said you
job.
weren't there.
I was not there, but I talked to my husband. I have
Okay,
text with my
okay.
husband telling me what was going on. He sent me a picture of the dirt, which you saw that picture of the dirt. So it was determined that they would do the job that they were hired to do, that Dave had spec'd out for them. We put our faith in the fact that it was being vouched for and paid them.
So,
They had
so,
planned.
and I'm just making sure I understand. So Earth Care had an expectation to be paid 100% upfront before they started.
And they
work.
were paid up front when they planted the trees in the fall. That was the.
Is that a second
every-
part of the same
Pardon?
invoice? That was that a second? part of-
It was a part of the same spec for the job. We had an agreed amount that we were gonna spend on trees. We sourced some of them ourselves. We were able to get more trees than they would have been able to provide for us, but then they planted the trees. So it was all within that agreed amount of money that we were reimbursed for in February.
So,
And this
so-
was the second part of the
So if I can
job.
go back, because I think it's important for the board to understand completely what we got going on here. There is work that Earth Care did that you're not satisfied with, that you've already paid them for.
Correct.
And so I don't understand, I think what I don't understand in what you're saying, Dave, in regards that there might be some additional cost, why would the Lairdsons and or the municipal authority pay any additional work to Earth Care until they complete what we thought they should have done the first time?
I'm not planning on paying Earth
They've
Care.
already been paid?
Yeah, but
For
I guess I
more.
misunderstood than what Dave said.
Up
Because
until, we're not gonna pay them more money until they, in a sense, complete the job. Now, if it takes more than what was spec'd, I don't know, then we'll have to discuss that. I just also want to be able to say that Earth Care was not my first choice. It was not our first choice. We had a contractor that we preferred, which was more expensive. And my husband also offered to just do it himself and charge for materials and rental, equipment rental. And we were more or less talked out of that, you know, what if he got the grading wrong? And ironically, here we are.
But
So have we seen the specs? You've seen the specs from Earth Care?
He created the
We-
specs.
I provided them with exhibits showing the areas that needed
Can
to
we
be
see,
addressed.
can you
did they
circulate
complete
those?
that work?
No, not to my satisfaction.
I mean,
No,
if
But
not
I
after-
think
not
they
after-
did.
Not after coming out.
But I think
talked-
that's the first step.
I
I think
talked,
they've got to complete that
yeah,
work to
I
your
talked,
satisfaction.
I talked to Mr. Larison on the phone the day that they were completing their work and asked Jack, because they basically said, well, we agreed that we're not going to touch the rear yard where basically Mid-Atlantic left spread, you know, the soil pile out. They said that their scope of work was to deal with just the area that was from the street through the front yard, around the side yard, and then kind of down to where Brandywine Tree took the large oak out. Jack's concern to me was they didn't bring anywhere near enough topsoil to deal with that area. So I talked with Earth Care. I said, you know, I have a 4,500 square foot area that you need to spread topsoil and seed. And they said, well, we didn't, you know, we planned on 7 yards of topsoil. I said, that's not going to give you a half an inch of topsoil over that area. So they ended up bringing out another like 13 yards of topsoil or 17 yards of topsoil. I forget what Ben told me when we met.
I don't know if that's true. I don't know.
But it still sounds like, Dave, that you said they think they're finished and they were paid and they'll come back for more money. That's what
No,
Steven's
that's
saying.
not what I said. I said that Earth Care is committed to come back to address the areas that are deficient. Anything beyond that, they want to be paid separately for.
Okay.
And
I
any grade,
understand that.
and any
Okay.
grading that needs to be done,
That's
they're not going to grade per se without having an engineered plan and grade stakes, which is what I suggested to the Larisons when we met 2
So let
weeks
me
ago.
ask this question. Is the grade plan and grade stakes equaling to the initial of what you just?
No, that's
This
not.
is over and
No.
above.
That's
Yes.
over and above, yeah.
And probably wouldn't be Earth Care, I guess, at this point. Right?
Unless we put stakes out and gave them cuts and fills, yes. I mean, it's,
Well, my concern is, you
So
know.
I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead. Go ahead, Steve.
I just want to ask one other question just for clarity, so if the grade stakes that you're going to put out, is that it's in addition to what was expected from Earth Care the first time?
yes.
We're kind of backing up. it sounds
Because-
like.
yeah, I mean,
We're
because-
trying to now get to a point where we can look at the property and say what needs to be done in order to ensure that the water flows in a way that,
Correct.
you know, is not going to,
So
result in
part of the
pools.
issue is what Earth Care did not complete. In particular, around the side yard, they have some rutting still that needs to be filled in and smoothed out so that the water flows away from the house toward the wetland area and not funneled down toward the backyard. That's number one. Number two is the area that was pushed out along the back of the property when Mid-Atlantic came to install their lateral and push the rest of the soil out. It generally flows toward the rear yard. There's an area where it kind of concentrates and then flows down through the wooded area in the backyard. And Jack showed me the flow path that it follows. Now, that's probably going to get a little bit better as the grass matures and comes in more fully. But the way that that's graded still needs to be addressed, in my opinion. That's part of what's contributing, I think, to the wet area where the
And that's
3
not
dogwood trees
all,
died.
you know, and believe me, I hate Mid-Atlantic. I'm not trying to give them an out by any means, but we also had two gigantic tulip poplars that were taken down, that came down on the backyard and further compacted all of that and did all of that. And that was approved by the municipal authority. And so that has to be addressed as well. So that is part of the problem as well. It's just the compaction of that backyard soil. We fully expected that they were going to put topsoil on that, rock hound it, get the debris out, and they did not.
When you say they, who?
They being every contractor that we talked to, and that's what my husband would have done. And that
Would they
wasn't
be,
done.
in this case, Earth Care?
And Earth Care did not do that.
Okay, but was that part of the specs?
It
The
was,
area where the tulip poplars were?
that's the backyard. Those two, that was on, one was on the Sweeney side and one was on the Schlenker side. And they're gigantic.
Well, I know the one, and I know
behind
the
Rail
authority's not gonna
Rock.
know where Whale Rock is, but.
Right, and then the other one was
one
basically straight across from Whale Rock.
Okay, okay.
I mean, just, look, this was my backyard.
We
This
don't
is that
listen.
same view.
We got it. We're trying to
Can-
make you,
can
we're
I-
trying to make you whole here to the
I-
extent that we're responsible.
It seems like to me, there's a lot that's still going on.
Yeah.
I would like to make the recommendation, and obviously the board can do what it wants, but I would make the recommendation to you that myself, the engineer, the solicitor, and potentially two members of the board, because you can't have a quorum, but two members of the board would go out to the Lairdsons, talk about each area of her concerns, and build a specific list of what is agreed upon by both parties, is owned by the municipal authority as potentially fixing for her, figure out what's left to be done by Earth Care to fill out their contract, understanding that we have a contractor who was the Lairdson's private contractor to do that hookup, that we know we have had issues at many other properties, but at the same time, we have pieces that obviously sound like they still belong to us potentially. I don't know how you make a decision sitting here tonight without having some more information. I don't want to drag it out, but the only way I can see doing this is to literally go out to the property, walk every area, have some discussion and make a decision. That way we can come back to you for final at the July meeting, because it doesn't sound like we're going to do the work over
Correct.
right now anyhow, but have a plan so that between now and hopefully end of October, we can have resolved for this so that the Lairdsons at least know what the municipal authority is committing to, and if they need to go back against Mid-Atlantic or whatever they choose to do, because I do think there's a couple things that relate to what Mid-Atlantic did, but, I think we just
Mid-Atlantic
need
would have
clarity.
never spread that dirt if Joa had not left that dirt there. Joa initially represented to us that they could hook us up immediately and just block off part of the sewer. That didn't happen. The story is so convoluted, and it's the
I
fourth
understand, but I
summer.
think until we're there and see it, until we walk the land with you and understand what needs, I hear that, but I don't know what that means,
Right.
right? Until we're walking through there and until we have, if we have engineering experts, but also I think the solicitor needs to be there in order to be able to come up with the release that we need to design. I think the authority needs that kind of expertise on the field, and I would recommend two board members, only because if two board members stand in agreement, potentially a third one would agree as well. And we can get you what is a resolution. Right now, I think we could talk about this a lot tonight, but I don't think you're going to have a resolution. And my goal for you is that we could come up with some kind of resolution. And I think the best way is to commit to doing that in the next 3 weeks, so that in 4 weeks, when you meet again, there's at least a halfway plan that's designed, and potentially we could have a release put together so that you would have something that you could look at and figure out how to move forward. That's my recommendation to you.
I'm fine with that as
I
far as,
agree.
going out there and having a team and then we make a recommendation to the board. I'd be happy to be one of the board members. Who else would be interested in doing
I would love to if it could be a Monday or Friday.
that? Tom's also expressed some interest, Mark. When is your availability?
You name it.
Okay. Yeah, so Mark, only so, because it's a little more flexibility and I tend
Sure.
to go away on Fridays, so. All right, so, and then, is that okay with you, Will?
So, yeah, I would like to be able to have a date for next week to have that.
If that should be a problem. I'm available if,
Problem for me because I'll be out of town next week.
okay, that's a problem.
Unfortunately, I won't be out of town. I will be here. June 29th, I will be. I'm going to France, so I will be in town.
Tuesday's actually my best day next week.
And you're out of
This is
town.
the 27th and the 28th.
Well, Jamie, you're saying that you can stand in for Dave? Or would you prefer to have Dave there, given his longevity
Well,
of the project?
Dave's been there, but I think Dave's going out of town. I can be there. I have no problem being there. Like I said, I'm leaving the 29th. I'll be out of town. I won't be back until the 11th of July.
So here's the problem. I have an all-day CLE, the 27th and the 28th.
When are you back
So
in
if we could
town?
do it this week.
Yeah, I was gonna say, can we
Here
do
to
it
the
this
fourth-
way?
Why
here to
not
the
this
4th of
week?
July weekend.
We can do it this way. I cannot do it Friday. Or or it could happen very early on Friday morning.
We do it Thursday?
Can we do it Thursday?
I can't do Thursday.
You can't do
Can't
Thursday?
do Thursday?
Okay, Wednesday? Can I,
Wednesday, okay with me?
I can do Wednesday afternoon.
Wednesday being tomorrow?
No, Wednesday being.
Oh, tomorrow's
Well,
Tuesday.
it's Tuesday.
Wednesday the
I
28th?
know it's
We're only
late.
a little
I
bit
know
off.
it's late.
We
but
already
still-
went, it's Tuesday already. You're right. It'll be tomorrow.
Oh, boy.
So
Wednesday?
Wednesday, at what time?
What, does anybody have any unavailability on Wednesday?
I have to be in Chadsford at 2 o'clock.
So we
And
can
I
do-
just have a meeting at 9:30 to 10:30.
So 11:30,
On Wednesday? Mhm.
11:30 on Wednesday.
I'll have to double check that with my husband.
You can be there, Mr. Ford.
Yes, I can.
Okay. All right.
Wait, let me make sure I got this. Sorry.
And it's going to be, just real quick, Tom, Maria, and then
Mike?
David will be there.
Dave, Mike, and myself.
And what's your address?
It's 4019 Fox Hill Lane.
4019, right? Just so
Yeah,
we have.
it's off of Echo Valley. It's the top street on Echo
419.
Valley.
Fox Hill.
Fox.
I believe we have,
Fox,
I believe I have your
Yeah.
email address.
Yeah.
If I
Fox
don't,
Hill.
P.
I know-
Larison@gmail.com.
I know that Suzanne has it, so
Yes.
we'll get that. We will send out an invitation tomorrow.
Okay,
Depending on whether or not, it's going to be sent from Outlook.
okay,
Okay,
That's
so it may
Newtown
come
Square.
across funny depending on what you
Right off
use.
of, it's right
Okay.
off of
We'll be sending out that invitation tomorrow.
okay.
Echo Valley.
I'm new here. I love
Hey,
it.
Stephen,
Yes.
well, can you have John join you too, or he's still out with his daughter? Hosback.
I have to call John.
He's pretty good with that stuff. I mean, he knows the soil and a lot better, trees too, but he's really a very good soil person also.
Well, that would, I mean, just if the authority wishes to have the arborist there at the same time, I'll see if John's available.
Yeah, that would actually.
That'd be,
that's a good
I
idea.
think it'd be very helpful.
Yeah, he has been there before. He
Well, you
he
have
helped
you
work
have
with the
another
legislators
tree.
for the recommendation for the plantings. I also would like to run by John the issue with regard to the dogwoods and having the burlap bag still encased into the wire wrap.
So there's that, and you have another
Yeah.
tree you want him to look at too now, right?
Yeah,
At the
yeah,
corner of the
there's
driveway
two
and
of them.
on-
That would be
I'll
good.
see if John's
And then
available.
can you bring the
Yeah, just
specs
keep in
in?
mind, he just had a death in the family, so he may not be available yet.
Yeah, I know that. I found that out last week at the end of the week.
Okay.
Mrs. Larison, did you provide already proof of payment to Earth Care,
To you,
to us?
I think we got it to you.
I believe I've seen
It was on last month's agenda, so you have it.
Okay,
I saw it.
okay. I just want to make sure we have it. Steve,
I think
can
we
you
have it.
confirm that,
All
please?
right, and I would like to follow up on also, so when Joa came through our yard with equipment that was way too large for a residential property, especially as close as they were to our property and to our house and to the septic tank, it knocked the pump off and we had to replace the pump shortly after they left. Joa claimed that that was not their fault, that they didn't touch the septic. That is true. They physically did not touch it, but you cannot tell me that that equipment, given the size of the boulders, et cetera, that they excavated out of our yard, that there were not vibrations that caused that. I submitted that bill last year. We've not heard word on what you're doing with that, as well as John had recommended waiting to take one of the tulip poplars down and to see if it would come back in the spring. We thought we were going to have a yard by the spring, so we did not want to wait. And we wanted to see if you would share that expense with us.
I think that'll be a part of all that discussion.
There's some visual
Wednesday.
impact to seeing those boulders.
Yeah.
You know, when you say boulders, to me sitting here and I envision a boulder as opposed to when I was standing out there with you earlier and actually laying eyes on what you're talking about. I think it'd be useful for the folks who are coming
Okay.
to see that stuff as well.
On that day, let's cover all of your issues. I'm not committing that the people there will make final decision,
Right.
but they'll make a recommendation back to this group as to what steps will be taken.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming. Anybody else for public comment?
Hello, how are you tonight? My name is Mike Kissinger. I'm actually not a resident. I work for Pannoni, and I'm the civil engineer for the school district. Okay. So we have an upcoming project that I just wanted to make everyone aware of. Culbertson Elementary will be having another expansion. We just finished about a 12,000 square foot expansion, and we're going to be doing another one. And of course, it's to try to meet a need. So one of the biggest hurdles we're going to have is actually additional sewer flow for that facility. So we've been going through some numbers and math about water bills and what the ad will be. But you know, really, we're just here to try to put it on your radar that we will be needing. I think it's about an EDU, but we would provide those numbers to your board for calculations and for verification. But we were just here to just make you aware so that when we came back in the possible next month, we might be able to make resolution and get to the DEP as fast as possible. Because we know that they, you know, will have some issues as we move down the line.
What's the timing?
Actually, I probably shouldn't speak to that. I mean, I think they might have said it the other day, but I forget what it is now.
They're hoping to be in the planning commission for the township in July.
Yeah.
Obviously hoping to be before the board of supervisors at the beginning of September. And you know, so obviously it's a pretty quick move
Mhm.
on that. And in this case, RHM has, you know, we got to go through the RHM side. So obviously getting that process started as early as possible. Good news is it's been kind of consolidated, but there's still some question about capacity in the RHM side. Having seen the numbers that I saw this afternoon,
One EDU.
one, potentially two EDUs is what we're looking at. And so obviously your engineer would need to review all of that and say, yes, that makes sense, or no, that doesn't make sense. But that would be that's the number frame that we're looking at based on what I saw. You know, there may be some other calculations that need to be done based on square footage, but I think everything that I saw, it seems to come out about right. And so, but you know, there's people smarter than me who look at these numbers for a reason. And so we'll get all that over to Dave for his review. But like I said, I just got them this afternoon.
Right.
Just quickly off the top of my head, does the expansion just involve classrooms, or does it involve any cafeteria area or?
It's classrooms and kind of breakout space.
Okay.
So it's not additional like kitchen staff or services. So So what we did is we looked at it 3 different ways. We actually took all the past water bills, but we didn't do the summer. We took those out of there. And then what we did is we divided by the number of students currently in the building and then our estimated enrollment, future enrollment. And we also did it per classroom and then future classrooms. And then we did it based on just gross square foot of building. And we did it all 3 ways, and it came out to about 170 gallons to I think it was 250 gallons a day.
Okay.
So I tried to skin the cat multiple ways, but I know that that's a long conversation that we'll have to have. But I just was hopeful to be able to have that conversation sooner than later so I can move downstream, if you know what I mean, and try to get through all this, guys.
Okay.
I just suggested just to put it on your radar, and
No, I think it's really good.
Mike volunteered to come in tonight and do that, so
Yeah.
I don't know if he knew it would be so exciting, but
You know, I'm on Tredyffrin Sewer Authority Board myself. I live in Tredyffrin, and this was much more exciting than any meeting I've experienced up there.
I don't know if that's a good thing,
I don't think it is.
but we appreciate it. What
Oh,
was that,
yeah.
what was that increased enrollment for Culverton, just out of curiosity?
Actually, I don't recall the actual number. I can look it up here. I have it on my phone. But it's to meet a need that the school district has, that they've been trying to jockey, different students around in different buildings. So this would meet a huge need of theirs. So I believe that they wanted to open it even, I think it was the winter, like January 1st the following year. So it is a pretty tight timeline as to when they wanted to do that. Let me look at that. But again,
While
we'll
you're
make all
looking,
this.
yeah, while you're looking that up, Stephen, we've discussed where flow goes, SR2, SR3. And while I'm closing my eyes and trying to imagine what's further down Goshen Road, but growth in any facility, let alone a school, at what point in time does RMH say no more room?
well, and that's the reason why you go
Yeah.
through that process. And so, I mean,
I'm
on
thinking
one
more
argument,
alternatives.
you would say that this is just infill and it's small. I mean,
Right.
even if it's 2 EDUs, it's relatively small. But I do know RHM had some point where they were taking nothing.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know, I've heard that they've opened up a little bit right now. But, so the school district has a challenge to get that process started. And so, that's one of the reasons why I suggested, let's start early, get it before you, so you at least understand that it's coming.
Yeah.
And also that we can start doing the work that needs to be done.
The number 77 students.
Okay, well, pretty significant for a small
Yeah.
school like that.
Yeah.
Wow.
More than 10%.
Yeah.
It's like about 15 if I'm doing quick math, and I could be off.
The more
3 or 4%.
residential development that goes on, the more children.
Well, and I'll be honest with you, when they came in and met with us last week from the township side and we were talking, I said, are you anticipating and are you building to anticipate potentially more than what we know is coming? Because there's potential, we know of potentially more. And so I know they're looking at that, like, could you put a second story on this building that they're putting in? It's a single story. Could they put a second story in? And those kind of questions. That's between them and the school district. They've got lots of issues to address. I know they've talked a lot of different options, but we are having those conversations with them.
But yeah, so we'll make formal application. I just wanted to introduce the project to you guys so that you saw it and then get on your radar for some conversations, Dave.
Great. Well, we really appreciate you coming in tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great night.
You too. I don't see any other members of the public here. Any items that we need to discuss that absolutely need to go on to the next agenda?
The only one that turned off, the only one that I know for sure, well, 2 that I can think of, if we'll have some update where we are with the Lairdsons,
Right.
since she's been here. And obviously we're going out this week. And then secondly, the only other one that I would bring is the one that we tabled or took no action on. Those are the two that I have for you for sure.
The other, how about 4111
Yeah.
Goshen Road?
Oh, yes, and 411 Goshen Road. I have that actually start. I just didn't have it right here. So, yeah, 411 Goshen Road.
Gotcha. Okay.
And depending, you'll also have a reading or at least huh?
So we'll read the results of the bid for the Westchester Pike Sewer Replacement
Right.
Project.
And then what about the JOA Bradley, the Camelot? We didn't,
Well,
that's
I
possibly
mean,
going to be.
optimistically, we'll have something to review at least.
Gotcha. Okay. All right, so at least 4 things for sure. Okay. Anything else for the good of the order? All right, I'll take a motion to adjourn. All right. We are adjourned. We don't, I did read that. You don't have to formally take like a vote on adjournment.
That was
That's one of our grammar schools.